Yeah, you never want to be in a position where you probably don't want to ever be imitating any wedding video work full stop. It's so much more important to have a well-rounded kind of creative diet and making sure you're watching good content. All that stuff is influencing you. You know, if you want some inspiration on how should I get my couples to move, go watch Hamilton. So you have the highest level professional choreography on the planet. How are they touching each other and moving and interacting and talking, and how far apart are they? When do they move together? Those are things that you can put right into your film. Stop worrying about what the next person is doing and find the stuff that gets you excited and creatively energized and use that.
I would say a lot of creativity a lot of times is just figuring out a creative way to steal from another genre without other people knowing. Why you gonna try to get mad? Everybody wanna keep up. Don't you know I move too fast? I'ma zip right past. Drip all on my swag. Hey everybody, welcome to the Wedding Film School Show. We have another awesome episode for you today and an amazing guest, and we're really excited to be giving you another episode in the middle of crunch time. If you're listening to this, I'm sure you're actually probably editing right now. So thank you for tuning in to the Wedding Film School Show. Jason, how are we doing?
I'm doing good. It's very hot outside today.
Yeah.
So I was hoping it wouldn't be like, we have a lot of weddings. It's in the middle of wedding season. All I really ever hope is like, because I know we're going to shoot well. The couples are going to be amazing. The only thing I'm ever like is, please God, let the weather not be too hot. I would rather it rain.
You really? I think I would rather it be hot, because then I sweat anyways. I'm like a big sweater on the day of, whether it's like 70 degrees out and beautiful, I sweat. And if it's hot, at least I have an excuse, because everyone else is sweating.
So here's the question then.
Yeah.
What if like all your best weddings, it was really hot, but the ones you're like, about, it was rainy and you're not going to show them anyway?
That is a conundrum, I guess. Yeah.
This is like how people actually talk about their clients.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, I mean, that's the only thing for me, man, is like, I'm having a good time shooting weddings. Yep. and
it's just good to be back. Honestly, it's good to be just in the grind, filming weddings again, celebrating with people. It's just like,
yeah, I
don't think people can take it for granted anymore.
Yeah.
If you're a filmmaker, it's like so good to just be around people and, I don't know. I'm so grateful.
I keep thinking about like in the middle, it's easy to complain. It's like the natural instinct is to complain about things. Like you go anywhere and you find something wrong with it. I don't know what's wrong with us as people, but that's just what we do. And it's easy for a lot of people right now to be like, oh, I'm so busy.
Yeah.
So tired. And like, it's like, remember last year when you almost lost your entire livelihood?
Yeah.
And could have died?
But at least I was able to play a lot of Call of Duty.
Yeah, so, it's like, so I think like it's very important to think through like, actually, I am busy, I am tired, but I'm super grateful. Not only do I have money and a job, but like I didn't die. All the people at this party didn't die. And we're here celebrating that like weddings are awesome and parties are back. So so that's where I am. And I am excited, like tired but excited, and looking forward to doing a bunch of fun stuff. If you're listening to this, we got to hang out with Alex Douglas and Whitney live on the live stream and do some film critiques. So that's cool.
Yeah, if you haven't checked out WFS Live on Thursday nights at 9 p.m., make sure you're doing that, because we do just a weekly show separate from the Wedding Film School show here on the podcast, where we review people's wedding films. So if you are looking for feedback, being a wedding filmmaker for most people is a pretty lonely profession, especially creatively, where they're like, you don't have someone to just bounce ideas off of.
Is this good? Is this bad? I don't know.
That's the point of WFS Live, is to actually give you some feedback from not only us, myself, Jason, and Bobby, but like Jason said, we had Alex and Whitney on last week. And then also commenters, like the community that night is pretty fun. So pour yourself a little drink and get on WFS Live. Check it out.
We do websites too, website critiques, pricing critiques, just stuff to get people better and improve. But we're connected with more filmmakers, which is a lot of fun. We're going to be going to Vegas, WPPI, hopefully putting on a party for filmmakers out there. So if you're going to WPPI, come hang out.
Yep.
Doing something with Vision Quest, teaming up with Alex and Whitney, Arceus, and a couple people.
Yep.
And I mean, there's just there's a lot to be grateful for, a lot of fun. But we got a guest today.
We do. Enough plugs, Jason.
Enough plugs. Enough of this terrible money-making capitalistic garbage.
Let me introduce our guest today. I met our guest years ago. They were putting on an awesome workshop in Brooklyn called Workshop. Back in the day, it was amazing. It was really geared towards photographers. But I also came to find out that he also did wedding films and was an awesome cinematographer as well. Our guest today is Ryan Browne of Forged in the North. What's up, Ryan?
Yo,
how's it going, man?
Good. It's going good. A lot of what you guys are saying is resonating with me. I love hearing it.
Good stuff, man. Good. Well, thank you for joining us. I'm sure you're swamped this summer. We were just talking how many weddings both of our companies have to do this summer, and it's hearing that we both have that much work, I'm feeling overwhelmed. You seem cool and collected. We seem like we're just like chickens with our heads cut off, man. It's crazy.
It's it's all about getting the right team put together, as you guys know.
That's it.
Yeah,
that's it.
I can't do it alone.
So Ryan, where are you out of? Give everybody kind of a little, just a little bio.
Yeah. So we're based in Brooklyn, New York. My wife and I started and run Forged in the North together. I'm originally from the Midwest, but I moved here 11 years ago. And originally I was an architect. Heidi was too. We worked as architects in the city for a little bit before switching over to this. That we can maybe table that and talk about it later if you want. But we've been based here ever since leaving architecture, and kind of haven't looked back since. But we do photo and video. We started doing photo and video from the very first wedding we shot. We don't really consider ourselves like just photographers or just wedding filmmakers. It's kind of always been hybrid for us, and that's sort of the quick potted bio. Nice.
So would you think Forged in the Midwest would maybe be more accurate of a
The thought was New York and Chicago, which is Heidi's from New York, I'm from Chicago. Kind of a northern sort of climate. Yeah. Although it is funny, someone did reach out to us years ago and asked us if they could be forged in the South, and they were dead serious. I told them that might not be a good idea, and I think they went with a different name, but I guess it was flattering.
Did they send you some art and it was like a Confederate flag too? I hope they don't listen to this, by the way.
I hope they do.
Yeah, I'm really hoping they're not out there still. Yeah. I don't know.
I mean, chances are they're not.
Yeah.
Chances are they're wedding filmmaking.
We only have one listener, Ryan, so that's good.
I actually went to school out in Rockford, Illinois, so
nice.
I know that it's actually our editor moved here, lived here. Now he moves back to Rockford, so part of our team is in Rockford, Illinois.
Yeah. That's it.
Whoa, that's random.
Yeah.
So I'm from just 45 minutes from there, a town called St. Charles. Right in the neighborhood.
Yeah, so I would say though it counts as the North because it is freezing. So
it is so cold.
It is so cold
in Illinois. I mean, of course, there's colder places than Chicago, New York, but yeah, definitely relative to the rest of the country, I would consider ourselves Northerners.
I love the name. It's super, super cool. So we're going to talk about being cool a little bit later. But before we do that, though, today's podcast is brought to you by The Music Bed. I always call it The Music Bed, by the way, because we've had it. Remember when it used to be The Music Bed?
Until you told me this like a couple weeks ago, I still thought it
was The Music Bed. Yeah. That was what it was called, and they changed it to Music Bed. But if you go to Music Bed and you use our code on checkout when you're checking out on a wedding membership, not one of their other memberships, the wedding membership, if you use the code WFS and sign up for an annual subscription, you can get 30 days free, a bunch of money off your subscription. My opinion, the most essential investment any wedding filmmaker can have is music. Every other thing that you buy for your wedding filmmaking career can vary. You can get different lenses. You can get different. There's a lot of ways to do it. You got to have good music. So head over, Music Bed. I think they're the best in the biz, and they're awesome. Supports our channel as well, so just click the link in the description. Use the code. You'll get more benefit out of it than we will, I promise you. So go for it. But before we do any more show stuff, we're going to do 3 questions with Ryan from Forge to the North. You ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
First question is, what gear are you using these days?
Full disclosure, I am we're Fuji creators. We're sort of ambassadors for Fuji, so we are all on Fuji gear. Actually, most people in the studio are on Fuji at this point, but Heidi and I are fully Fujifilm shooting right now. So X-T4s for video and some photo, and then the GFX 100 for photo. The thing that you always hear with the X-T4s is, oh, the crop sensor. The thing is like most movies and TV shows are shot on a crop sensor, which is an Alexa.
Yeah.
And so, most people are not shooting open gate on an Alexa, which would make it a little bit bigger, but the X-T4 has roughly the same sensor size. So if it's good enough for Hollywood, if it's good enough for TV, it's probably good enough for weddings.
So question number 2, Ryan, is what is a piece of work that you've done that you think really represents Forged in the North?
It's a tough question. I mean, we shoot so many great couples at this point, and I think for us, like, it used to be about the adventure. It used to be about traveling. How extreme and crazy can we go with this? And now we just care so much more about, like, does this couple love our work? That's it really at this point. I don't care where I shoot anymore. I have no qualms about shooting in bad venues or anything like that. Like, if the couple digs us, I'm down.
Cool.
So that, that has kind of shifted over the years for us. I don't know. With that said, there are a couple destination things that we've done that are just where we just had couples that were just down to work with us and make it awesome. There was a France wedding we did, which is like one of the main video things we have on our website. Jeff and Ashley is the couple's name. Their wedding was particularly special for us, just spending like a whole weekend with these people, small, kind of intimate. There was one other, I'll give a quick little story about one other wedding I shot that I was only doing video, and I showed up and I did not understand or they didn't tell me, or something happened where I was not allowed to shoot any of the girls getting ready. It was a very traditional Muslim wedding, and so no men were allowed to see the women for literally the first half of the day. We were only supposed to be shooting for 7 hours, and Heidi was not with me on this wedding. So it was just me and another male shooter. And so the first half of the day, the first 3.5 hours, I did not get a single clip of the bride. And there was some family tension happening that day. And it was not the smoothest wedding day, to say the least. And I left that wedding just feeling terrified of, like, how in the heck am I going to, make a video out of this thing. I just didn't even know where to start, because it was like I got nothing. That ended up being one of my favorite videos I've ever made. There was something about the constraint of it, of having these parameters and being almost feeling like you're boxed into a corner, that just like let me do something totally different than what we normally would do. And that one is on our website. It's Omar and Hajar, and it's not like maybe our best piece ever, but it's something I'm proud of because I knew how hard it was on the wedding day and how difficult everything went, and how little I had to work with. So that one I would say I'm definitely particularly proud of, for sure.
Cool. And the last question, Ryan, is where can people find you guys these days?
probably the best spot is our Forge the North Instagram. That's where we're posting all our recent work. We don't have a blog, so anything new goes there. Other than that, my personal website's ryanrbrowne.com. That's commercial work, aerial work, that kind of stuff. Those are probably the best places.
Cool. Yeah, guys, and on that last question is, make sure you are checking Ryan's work out on Forge in the North. His wife, Heidi, is actually an amazing photographer as well. So if you want to be inspired by somebody's work, I would definitely recommend go check them out. Which kind of leads me into my first question, Ryan, which is like, being a photographer and videographer, do you find that your photo work kind of influences your video work creatively? Like, how do you think they kind of work together in general?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, they definitely are joined at the hip.
Yeah.
And we make that very much a part of our sales pitch to clients, that they are better off with us doing both because of the overlap in our style and approach, and we don't have to have a separate video time and a photo portrait time or anything like that. I would say with the photography, it's a constant search for light and finding good light and good compositions, good places to shoot against. That's one half of it. And then on the video side, we're always looking for movement. So maybe it's noticeable in our work, but we're like anti-static shots. At least we try to be. So it's interesting with like the photography, all of our photo work then has a movement in it because a lot of it is being filmed by us at the same time. So they're kind of both constantly influencing each other, if that makes sense.
The average wedding filmmaker does not own a photo business. They have what they have. They're just doing their video. They're dealing with what they're dealing with. And a lot of people actually have no idea how to pose couples or produce movement. So give some people, like, how can people take that, movement posing strategy and get better video footage, either by helping the photographer get poses that they love? Because I think that's what it comes down to, is like helping them get good stuff too, that you also get good stuff with. How can people just find a way to implement that strategy into those sessions and trying to change it up from the plain old like hold, kiss, hold the kiss? Like that's what we're talking about. That's what we're trying to avoid, right?
Yeah. I think it's a really tough one, and it really does depend on who the photographer is. And we tell this to all our couples. So about a third of our work is photo only, a third is photo and video, and a third is video only. That's about our spread right now for Heidi and I. So when we're shooting video only, we're always very interested to know who the photographer is. And if it's someone we know and our work is somewhat similar, or they're just a very skilled shooter, like we can kind of tell them what we're looking for. And a lot of times that means, hey, I'm looking for a lot of in-between moments. So don't walk right next to the bride and groom when we're going from location to location. When you're even setting them up for a static shot, stand back 10 feet and tell them what you want, because I might find something in that. So there's a lot of...
That's the thing that drives me nuts, Ryan, is photographers that have to walk 2 feet to the couple to explain every next pose.
Right.
I'm like,
right, and they're like touching shoulders and like all this stuff, and it was a perfect shot where you caught this moment where they were laughing, except the photographer's in it. That's tough, and a lot of that is just pulling the photographer aside and trying to explain that to them. Sometimes it doesn't go that way, and as much as you can talk to a photographer beforehand, it's definitely happened to us. You just can see within the first 5 minutes of the portrait session, this is not going to go well. And so you're better off, in my opinion, letting the photographer have their time. And even though it's a way shorter amount of time, I would say, hey, give me 10 minutes where I can just do anything I want and it's all about what I'm doing. That usually goes a little better. If you can do that earlier in the session, and the photographer likes what you're doing, which for us is most of the time the photographer sees what Heidi and I are doing, and they're like, oh, I'm going to get in on that because that's actually way better than what I was doing before.
Been there.
Yeah. Then it can work well. Then it's very collaborative, and we can be a little bit more involved and try to get some movement in the shot and stuff like that. But yeah, it is tough. Every wedding is different. Every scenario is different, and a lot of it, as you guys know, like the photographer runs the show a lot more than the video team does,
and they kind of have to too, like because they got to get all these formals, and they got to run a schedule. So it is what it is. I will say one of the things that I do, Jared, and I think you probably do, is I always go to the photographer and excitedly point out a bunch of things that I love about. Oh, do you see the light over there? We should take them over there. Like, because I can tell when I'm working with a photographer that's like, what, I always take them over to this one stairs, and then I'm like, I don't care about those stairs, bro. Like, I want good light. Good light. And like, so getting them in on it, because the issue I see is like a lot of people are stuck in their ways.
And a lot of people are afraid, especially, photographers who have been in the industry for like 20 years or whatever. They're like, they are stuck in their ways, but maybe they're afraid of doing something new or working with light they're not used to. And like, I always like working with a photographer who's just curious. They're like, what if we did these harsh shadows on their face or whatever? It's like they're trying new stuff. Like, that's where you can experiment and get what you're looking for and kind of have this collaborative kind of environment, which is fun.
Yeah, I think no matter what you're doing, I love your tip about just saying to someone, hey, either showing them or saying to them that you have good ideas, letting them in on it, hopefully getting them excited about collaborating. And I think that's the approach you have to take, because no matter what, even if they're the worst photographer in the world, you're not going to get better video by ticking them off or causing. So it's like, figuring out the best way possible to create collaboration and excitement and not step on toes is usually goal number one.
Browne, I wanted to ask you, because you mentioned it a little bit, with not having kind of a static lockdown kind of style to your filmmaking, and I definitely noticed that in your work. Like even basic stuff like, hey, the toasts, we're doing that handheld. Like there's movement to those shots, which I love. It kind of feels organic. It feels like you're actually there. I think it's a very kind of nuanced style of filmmaking. How do you feel can you maybe explain to me what your kind of gear setup is? Like what does your gear look like when you're shooting that day up? Is it pretty like stripped down?
I do love gear stuff. I'm kind of a gearhead. I'm really into that. Over the years, we've stripped back our gear headiness in the way we approach weddings. Right now, I'm shooting 95% of the day on a handheld X-T4 and a 35 millimeter. And that's it. That is basically the whole day from start to finish, aside from ceremony and speeches when sometimes we need to do something longer, or maybe we're in like a really cramped room for getting ready and I need to throw on something a little wider. But that's pretty rare. Other than that, fully handheld. The stabilization is good enough, and I don't, again, probably noticeable in our work, I don't mind a little shake to the camera. I don't mind a little humanistic kind of movement to it, something that feels like you're there. It's a little different than how most people shoot. It's definitely more freeing. There's no question about it. And I can guarantee you I get more shots than most videographers because I'm not balancing a stabilizer. I'm not hooking my thing up to a tripod or a monopod. I'm literally just constantly there shooting this, shooting that. And I'm pretty unnoticed on the wedding day, which is a huge advantage. Just going around kind of candid sniping stuff. People don't even realize you're shooting video, which is great.
I agree. It's one thing that I noticed the first film that I shot with the X-T4 was just like, hey, I'm not going to even use like we typically used a monopod. We're using Canon 5D Mark IVs, which is like, you can't do that handheld. The IBIS is terrible. They're heavy, like whatever. Now it's just like hold fast, XT4, and get some stabilization. And I think it's so freeing creatively when you just are like, hey, this is my constraint, and this is what the world that I'm kind of working in. It allows you to get in kind of that creative space. And that's definitely what I noticed with your films. We were talking to Benj about that recently, and he was like, yeah, the reason why I like film cameras is because it just creates all these constraints. And you even mentioned it before, like having constraints can kind of fuel creativity in a lot of ways, right?
It's a classic David Lynch conversation of like, where you know what I was watching the other day that made me think about this? I was watching, not David Lynch, but I was watching The Sound of Music with my 3-year-old. And have you watched that recently? Watch that film and then think about shooting that entire thing on film and then also having to color and Technicolor.
Yes.
But like they have a shot which must have been done on a helicopter or something. The first shot of her on top of the mountain. The composition, like all the things that they had to focus on because they can't just be like, meh, put it on a gimbal, meh, do this. Like right. I noticed that in the films that you're doing, and it makes me think, wow, that's cool. Like I always think that's cool. And we're talking about being cool. I think one of the reasons wedding films aren't cool, and we'll get into that, I'll ask you specifically, but now I'm going to rant a little. I think the reason they're not cool is because people are trying to be so perfect all the time. It seems like for you guys, that is not the goal at all. It's to just make a perfect wedding film, right?
Yeah, our stuff's shaky and out of focus all the time. I mean, yeah, I think you're nailing it. I think it's easy to get caught up on the gear. It's easy to think about how do I get that perfect steady cam or dolly type shot. And those are cool. Those are great. They have their moments, and you could probably also see in our work that I try to emulate that handheld all the time. I just do little left to right moves and little, slow walk-in moves and stuff like that. They have their place, but yeah, I think for me, like, yeah, and it's funny, Jared, that you mentioned going from monopods and 5D Mark IVs. That was our exact evolution as well.
That's funny.
Years ago, monopods, Mark IVs. I think maybe we owned a slider at one point. Just thought that was, the coolest thing on earth when we were first shooting. And I think it was okay. It was good to learn that way. But yeah, once we removed the camera from the monopod, I was just like, oh my God, there is just like a whole nother world of different kinds of shots that you can get now. And it does help. The technology progressing does help. Like the stabilization of the XT4, I can just sit there with like 100+ millimeter equivalent lens, handheld, and it's pretty rock solid. Like it's quite impressive, right?
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to do that for an hour worth of speeches, but the fact that you can get away with that is great. But yeah, I think for us, we just noticed there was a more like tangible human element to the video work once we started moving the camera in more sort of like natural ways, just like we're there as a guest and we're just walking with the camera shooting stuff.
Yeah.
And you can see that in a lot of really great TV and film work, handheld work, the way it sort of explores different frames and stuff like that. And that's for sure played a big influence on us. But yeah, I think the constraints thing is an interesting aspect. We used to be architects. You are always designing within a constraint as an architect. So there's job site parameters, there's programmatic constraints. What does the client need? What kind of rooms, what kind of spaces do we need? So there's engineering constraints. So that was sort of our world coming into this, and so it makes sense to me when I'm talking through like the story I told earlier, that those sort of constraints are actually like really great sort of Yeah, it's just great like firewood for the creativity fire. You know what I mean? Like it's just good stuff to have on you.
I just remember always being so jealous of the photographer who could just be like, boop, get the shot. And we're like, we have to set up this audio. We have to set up the monopod. We have to set up the tripod and just have the angles covered, and then switching over to being just like a photographer, right? Like just being like, boop, now I can just get the shot whenever it's happening. I have it strapped on myself, and it's just like when you are able to just get more shots, it just gives you so much more creativity in post. Yeah. Like I'm amazed. Yes. Like Kyle is our editor, and I'll sometimes like forget to turn off the camera or something, and it's like, you know, on the Fuji X-T4, like sometimes I'll do the touch screen or keep the touch screen, like somehow I'll flip over to that, like I'll just rub up against it and it'll start recording based on the touch screen. And Kyle will just use that sometimes, and I'm like, what in the world? Like, but just anyway, having more just gives him so much more options, and just being able to shoot more is
The point isn't even that we're advocating that everyone should be shooting handheld, by the way.
Yeah.
Or that it's so great, or that whatever, because there's clearly incredible filmmakers that don't. There's maximalist filmmakers. There's what is important though is giving yourself, and this seems so counterintuitive to creativity, but I know this is true. Give yourself rules and constraints. Don't allow yourself to always, and this is I think the real gear trap, Ryan, is I can do this now. Now I can do this. Now I can do, and like infinitely expanding your options to the point of like never editing out choices that you will and won't make. And that leads me, I think, to where I wanted to go with this conversation and Forged in the North, which is your films, your brand, everything is highly edited, highly curated, highly intentionalized. Like you look at it and you're like, and at the end of the day, there's a it does have that New York City thing to it where I'm like urban, a little bit of that edge, a little of that rawness, but they're not like what I would call edgy. Like they're just intentional, and at the end of the day I'd say they're cool. The films are cool. Like they feel like normal films, like for normal people, not like people who are like just gonna climb onto the top. Like those are great, but like let's be honest, how many of those clients are out there? Not that many. They're like cool films that normal people could also buy, and I feel like that's such a rare balance, right? Where you see a film that's artistically viable, approachable, but also cool. And so like why do we have this, like why are so many wedding films so cheesy? Like and why are you cool? Worst question ever.
You're teeing me up to sound like such a douchebag.
I mean, that's a choice you get to make right now. I gave you a compliment.
No, I think you touched on it. It's that chase for the perfect, the technically accurate, technically perfect shots that start to feel really disingenuous for a wedding. Weddings are chaotic, crazy, happy and sad and calm and energetic. Like there's so many emotions on a wedding day, and when you try to cram your like perfectly technical style down the throats of this environment, it's just not going to end well. And that, by the way, comes from doing years of cheesy stuff, I would say. Like I look back on our old stuff, and I'm not happy with a lot of the choices we made. We were doing the best we could at the time, but I think the other thing I would say, and again we've kind of touched a little bit on this, but don't be afraid to mess up, and don't be afraid to try shots that could very well turn out awful. We still do that now. We still put people in certain lighting conditions or certain spots, have them interact in a certain way, and they do it, and I'm like, that was awful. Like it could have been like because my idea was bad. It could have been because it's just not right for that couple. There's a lot of factors there, but I think when you go into, say, like a portrait session with a couple, which is where a lot of that cheese, I think, can happen, just know that, hey, like, there's probably very little of this that's actually going to get used. Let's just try some, like, weird stuff and have them move in ways that you never thought would work. And don't have them kiss and do 360-degree views of them at every wedding. Like, that's just probably not going to work for every couple. Not every couple is going to be comfortable with that kind of thing. So I think adapting to each couple's style and their personalities is a big part of it too. But yeah, just trying stuff that you know could totally fail has been for us so huge, so huge. With photo and video, with looking back on photos, there's been so many times where we try shots that just, you go back, look at them on the computer, and they're awful, and you would never show anyone. And so I think that's honestly a big part of it.
It's interesting. I think a lot of people on the wedding film side, they get weighed down by all their gear, and they get weighed down by, like, making sure audio's running. It's just all these different moving parts that are kind of external to the camera itself, right? And they're not in their monitor actually being present with the shots that they're getting. Like, that's probably one thing that I notice is it just feels like it doesn't connect. Like, the shots aren't connecting with, like, the vibe of the day, because it's like, and again, going back to, like, just paring it down so that you can focus on the actual shot and what's being created. It gives you that brain space to just be like, hey, I want to create this amazing looking image, as opposed to I want my gimbal to be balanced correctly. Like, who cares if the shot, like, the shot is the point at the end of the day, and making sure that you're connecting with the couple and getting, like, the reaction that you want. I find myself even, like, sometimes being trapped into, like, hey, the composition's really good, but they're making bad facial expressions or something like that. Like, I'm not even looking at, like, their eyes and their face, like, to make sure that it's kind of all syncing up, lining up together. So taking kind of the technical side out has been pretty freeing to me.
I think what I hear in a common thread is this is such cliche crap, and it's probably going to mean nothing, but at the end of the day, I think if you can figure it out for yourself, it means everything, which is be yourself. And don't, even like Jared and I have a studio, and we're going to talk about studios next because you have a studio. There are times where I'm like Jared, where I'm like, if I try to shoot like Jared, it will be bad. I don't shoot like Jared. I don't have the same aesthetic as Jared. I don't like the same things as Jared. Some of this, I mean, we have generally agreed upon this is good and bad. But there are things that I would do different than he would do. And if I try to imitate someone or be someone I'm not, and I think just at the end of the day, cool is really about being confident. And I mean, there's a style element, and there's some of that stuff which I think you got to work on. But I think a big part about being cool is just being confident with who you are and not trying to always second guess yourself. It's funny. I mean, do you know Sharon from Fjord Films? You're both New York people.
No, I don't.
Oh, she's
amazing.
New York City legend.
Yeah.
But she's incredible filmmaker. And she actually shoots almost all on tripod.
Yeah. Almost
the entire film. Doesn't give a still. You know what's funny? Sharon edits in Vegas.
Oh no.
Sony Vegas. She does not care.
Yeah.
What you think about her. She cares about what she thinks about herself. She shoots on lens babies. Like, just like that to me is what it means to be cool.
Yeah. I mean, look at a lot of, like, Roger Deakins films, No Country, right?
Yep.
So many locked off shots there. And those compositions and that framing, it's the best. It doesn't get better than that.
No.
And there's nothing fancy about it. It's just so well done. And basically all locked off. I think that you could find references for everything. Going back to the sort of imitating thing, I think, you never want to be in a position where you're it probably don't want to ever be imitating any wedding video work full stop. I think it's okay. I think it's okay to pick segments of how someone does something and be like, oh, that's an interesting little kind of technique. I might try that. But I think it's so much more important to have a well-rounded kind of creative diet and making sure you're watching good content. All that stuff is influencing you. If you're watching good films, watching good TV, all that stuff will affect how you shoot. Absolutely will affect how you shoot. So that is for sure a big part of it, is just sort of like making sure that the intake is top level, and that you're always sort of, you want to always be in a position where you're kind of like chasing after that next level. And I think everyone does to an extent. You always usually look back on old work and you're like, ooh, like I could have done that differently. I could have done that better. But that is for sure a big part of it, is like always kind of thinking you are a step below where you want to be, and you want to keep striving to get to that next level.
I was going to say, having a little bit of taste and culture goes a long way as well. Like
that's honestly
having a good
it.
Taste. Yeah.
That's honestly it, right? Is like, if you're like, I'm not cool, my films aren't cool, maybe you should be cooler. like maybe you should like cooler things. Maybe you shouldn't be like, it's garbage in, garbage out. And like whatever you put into your mind and heart is what's going to come out. That's what it is. And you don't, there's no law you can break around that, where you could just be like, well, and this is nothing against like any wedding filmmakers, but like if you go and watch Matt Johnson and only watch Matt Johnson, you're probably not going to make films that look like Roger Deakins. You're going to make films that look like, and like, we're wedding film. Don't watch me either. Like we're wedding filmmakers.
Yeah.
Like we talked about how to be creatively fulfilled last week. And the thing we said is, one of the number one reasons why people feel creatively unfulfilled is they don't have infinite time to do the thing they want to do. And that is what wedding filmmaking is. It is a unique art form that you can't go location scout, pick the perfect house where you can shoot a shot where like someone's doing a talk through the bathroom window. Like, that's what real filmmakers get to do. I want this shot. I'm going to find the perfect house. Imagine if you could pick the hotel for the couple every time.
Right.
Pick the room for the couple. It's like,
I mean, even a step further than that in my mind is, you don't pick the talent. You don't pick the people you're shooting.
Yeah.
And that is harder in my mind than dealing with different lighting conditions, because okay, you have your midday light, you have your cloudy weather, you have sunset light, that's easy, okay. You have no light, you have darkness, okay, now I have to bring a light. But there's a handful, right?
Yeah.
There's a handful of conditions. Yeah. There's not a handful of personality types and relationship types. There's dozens and dozens and dozens of different types of couples. And so you have to walk in and you're basically expected to be like a psychologist and immediately understand how this couple interacts, what makes them tick, what kinds of things am I going to say that's going to go over well with them, and what kinds of things am I going to say that could make them feel awkward. So that to me is also a big part of it, is just talking to your couples in the right way. And you just have to sort of be flexible with your own, I don't want to say with your own personality, but your own approach. And
we say bedside manner.
Yeah, bedside manner is a good way to put it. Yeah,
you got to know how to get people, figure out people. And it's like, we're dealing with these creative constraints that are so severe. Yeah. So severe. And so like, if you don't give yourself space to do the real job, which is deal with people, because you're constantly balancing your gimbal. Not to say there's anything wrong with the gimbal, but like, that's when you know you might need to step back a little, because it's like, that's where your creative stuff will. And ultimately, like we were saying, garbage in, garbage out, watching good things, ingesting good things will help you make faster decisions, I think, so you can focus on your couples. So
I mean, get outside your genre. You know, video filmmaker, wedding filmmakers, like start looking at photographers, start looking at old Renaissance art. You know, if you want some inspiration on how should I get my couples to move, go watch Hamilton. Let's start with that. You have the highest level professional choreography on the planet available to you on Netflix. And there's love stories in that. I mean, there's love stories almost in any play, but there's a love story at the core of that. How are they touching each other and moving and interacting and talking, and how far apart are they? When do they move together? Those are things that you can put right into your films. You're gonna have to figure out how to translate that into whatever wedding situation you're in. But man, there is just so much there that you could that you can source from. So that's a big one I would say to people is just stop worrying about what the next person is doing and find the stuff that gets you excited and creatively energized and use that in your work.
I would say a lot of creativity a lot of times is just figuring out a creative way to steal from another genre without other people knowing.
Cool. So if you want to, again, we want to check out Ryan, head over to his Instagram. Ryan, his wife, he's got a team of shooters as well. So we'll talk about it another time.
Yeah, we'll do teams another day, Ryan, because I'm very
Sounds
interested.
good.
I want to kind of compare how we run a team and how you run a team. We'll kind of talk through.
I'm interested too.
Yeah.
So thanks for coming on. That was a lot of fun.
Thanks, guys.
Ryan, when is workshop going to come back?
Oh yeah, it's real quick. I mean, yes, we had thrown around. This was back in 2019 after the third one. We had thrown around April 2020 as a potential fourth workshop date. Wow, are we glad that we did not act on that. April 2020. I mean, can you even imagine? Yeah, so I think for now, and again, we could talk about this on another episode maybe. For now, that sort of risk tolerance of running a big conference like that is not in the wheelhouse for us. It was really fun while it lasted, and people really enjoyed it. And so I feel like we kind of went out on a high note, and people want another one. And I'm like, well, that's good because it went well, but I don't know if it'll ever happen. We'll see. Maybe some type of reunion thing. But.
Yeah. Your risk tolerance is much higher than mine, and I would consider ourselves pretty high risk takers, but totally. So cool, dude. Well, thanks for being on, guys. If you enjoyed this episode of the Wedding Film School Show, make sure you're giving us a little sub, a little like, all the things on YouTube. Make sure that you're giving us some love on anywhere that you can find podcasts as well, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that fun stuff. And you're checking us out on our website, weddingfilm.school is the place that you can find us, submit your films, etc. Find us on our Facebook group. If you have questions on wedding filmmaking in general, really good community over there. Thank you for checking us out, guys, and we'll see you next week right here on the Wedding Film School Show.